Ryan was the kind of man every mother dreamed of raising. Kind, respectful, successful, and full of love. He had a heart that trusted easily and believed in true love. When he introduced Elena to his mother, he had stars in his eyes. "This is the woman I'm going to marry," he had said with a proud smile. Elena was beautiful, tall, elegant, and well-spoken. She always wore designer clothes, carried luxury handbags, and spoke with confidence. People around them called them the perfect couple. They looked happy. They laughed together. They held hands in public. To friends and neighbors, it looked like a fairy tale. But Mrs. Collins, Ryan's mother, was not so sure. She had been quiet, polite, and respectful. But deep inside, she had doubts. At the engagement party, she noticed small things others missed. Elena never looked Ryan in the eye when he spoke about emotional things. She always seemed more interested in showing off her jewelry and making sure the photos were perfect. Mrs. Collins watched silently as Elena ordered the staff around, corrected the decorators, and even snapped at Ryan when the champagne wasn't cold enough. "She's just stressed," Ryan said, brushing it off. "She loves me, Mom." Mrs. Collins nodded but stayed silent. She didn't want to create drama before the wedding. But her motherly instincts told her something was off. Very off. In the next few days, she kept watching. At dinner, Elena barely listened to Ryan's stories about work or his childhood. She only spoke about designer brands, expensive vacations, and her dream to live in a big mansion with 5 maids. Ryan smiled lovingly at her, thinking it was cute. Mrs. Collins did not. She also noticed how Elena disliked spending time with Ryan's old friends. She complained that they were too simple and not classy. Ryan laughed it off again. "Elena just has high standards," he told his mother. "But she's got a good heart." Mrs. Collins remained silent, but her heart was not at peace. Then came a moment that changed everything. One Sunday morning, Ryan was away at work. Mrs. Collins came to visit their apartment. Elena answered the door with a fake smile and barely invited her in. As Mrs. Collins stepped inside, she saw shopping bags, dozens of them, all luxury brands. New shoes, bags, perfumes, watches, and even a diamond necklace. Mrs. Collins gently asked, "Oh, was there a special occasion?" Elena didn't look up from her phone. "No, just some weekend shopping. Ryan doesn't mind." Mrs. Collins nodded again, but something inside her turned cold. She had raised Ryan to be generous, yes, but not foolish. And now she feared that his love was blinding him. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about all the small signs. Elena's expensive taste, her cold attitude, her controlling behavior, and most of all, her disinterest in Ryan's life and feelings. "She's not marrying my son," Mrs. Collins whispered to herself. "She's marrying his money." But how could she prove it? Ryan loved Elena deeply. If Mrs. Collins said something now, he would be hurt, maybe even angry. She needed to be sure. She needed proof. That's when an idea came to her, a plan, a silent, careful test. The next morning, Mrs. Collins picked up her phone and dialed a number. A woman answered on the other side. "Hello. It's me," Mrs. Collins said firmly. "I need your help. It's time we test her." There was a pause. "Are you sure?" Mrs. Collins looked out the window, her eyes cold and focused. "Yes. I need to know who Elena really is, before my son makes the biggest mistake of his life." Mrs. Collins was a kind woman, but she was also smart and protective of her son. She couldn't sit back and watch Ryan walk into a marriage without knowing the truth. She had spent years raising him with love, and now she feared he was about to give his heart to someone who didn't deserve it. After making the call, she sat down with her old friend Carla, who worked in corporate investigations. Carla had helped her in the past with business matters, but this time the job was personal. "I need to know who Elena really is," Mrs. Collins said, "not who she pretends to be in front of Ryan." Carla nodded. We'll create a situation. Something tempting. Something that will show her true face. And so, the plan began. Carla arranged for Elena to receive a message through a fake business connection. A woman named Madame Rivera, who didn't exist, would pretend to be a rich investor looking for a young, stylish assistant. The job paid well, offered international travel, and promised gifts, bonuses, and luxury. Elena received the message while sitting in a beauty salon, getting her nails done. As soon as she read it, her eyes lit up. She didn't even wait to tell Ryan. She simply replied, "Yes, I'm interested. When can we meet?" Mrs. Collins watched all of it through Carla, who had access to the messages. Her heart sank a little, but she wasn't surprised. Within 2 days, Elena went to a fancy hotel to meet Madame Rivera. The role was played by an actress Carla hired, a graceful, elegant woman with a calm but commanding voice. They sat at a private table. The camera, hidden in a flower vase, recorded everything. "I've heard you're smart, beautiful, and full of ambition," Madame Rivera said with a smile. "I need someone who can work with wealthy clients. Travel, shop, handle private matters. You seem like the perfect fit." Elena smiled sweetly, then leaned forward. "I like nice things. I can be charming when I need to be. I know how to impress people with money." Madame Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Even if your fiancé doesn't approve?" Elena giggled. "He doesn't need to know everything." That sentence hit Mrs. Collins like a punch. She was watching the recording later that evening, her hand clenched around a teacup. Carla shook her head. "There's more." In the next few minutes, Elena spoke about Ryan in ways that crushed his mother's heart. "He's sweet," Elena said, "but honestly, too simple. He works too much. He doesn't even notice the new things I buy. Once we're married, everything he owns is half mine anyway." Madame Rivera asked, "So this marriage is about the future?" Elena smirked. "Yes, a rich future." Mrs. Collins felt tears in her eyes, not because she was hurt for herself, but because she imagined how Ryan would feel. He was planning a surprise proposal. He thought Elena was the one. And she was using him. Still, Mrs. Collins wanted to be completely sure. Maybe Elena was just showing off. Maybe she was just talking nonsense. So she asked Carla to continue the test. Another meeting was set up. This time, Madame Rivera offered Elena a personal bonus, $10,000, if she agreed to travel with her to Europe for 2 weeks. Elena didn't hesitate. She said she'd handle Ryan later. Later that night, Mrs. Collins sat in her room alone, with the recording playing over and over. Elena's smile no longer looked sweet. Her words no longer sounded kind. She had failed the test, not once, but twice. The next day, Ryan came home with flowers, excited about the proposal he was planning. "She loves Paris," he said, laughing. "So I thought, what if I proposed there?" Mrs. Collins gave him a weak smile. She wanted to tell him everything. But she knew she needed to be careful. If she told him too soon, he might not believe her. She had to show him the truth. She picked up her phone again and called Carla. "Let's plan the reveal," she said. "It has to be at the right time. It has to be in front of everyone." Ryan couldn't stop smiling. Every time he looked at Elena, he saw his future, a big wedding, a family, a happy life together. He believed in her completely. He believed her love was real. But Mrs. Collins, she knew the truth now. She had seen the recordings. She had heard Elena's words, the greed in her voice, the fake smiles, the lies. Her heart ached for Ryan, but she still hadn't told him. Not yet. She wanted to be sure he would see it with his own eyes and believe it. In the days that followed, Mrs. Collins became more distant. She didn't laugh much when Ryan spoke about wedding plans. She gave short replies when Elena visited. She didn't say anything rude, but she didn't act excited either. Ryan noticed. "Is everything okay, Mom?" he asked one evening as they had dinner together. Mrs. Collins looked up and gave a tired smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart." But Ryan wasn't convinced. He felt something had changed. Later that week, Elena visited again. This time, she came wearing a brand new necklace, diamonds that sparkled under the kitchen lights. Mrs. Collins looked at it carefully. "That looks expensive," she said quietly. Elena laughed. "Oh, Ryan doesn't mind. He says I deserve nice things." Ryan nodded. "She works hard. She deserves to enjoy herself." Mrs. Collins didn't reply. Instead, she stood up and began clearing the dishes. Her hands shook slightly. Every word Elena spoke now felt like a lie, like poison slipping into her son's life. Later that night, Ryan sat beside his mother on the couch. "Be honest with me, Mom. You've been acting strange." She looked at him. Her eyes were tired but full of love. "Ryan," she said softly, "do you really know Elena? I mean, really know her?" He frowned. "Of course I do. We've been together for over a year." "But love isn't just about time," she said. "It's about truth, character, respect." Ryan grew quiet. "Is there something you're trying to tell me?" Mrs. Collins paused. Her fingers played with the edge of a cushion. She wanted to scream yes, to show him the videos, to tell him everything. But she knew he wasn't ready. "Just be careful," she said finally. "Sometimes people wear masks, and we don't see them until it's too late." Ryan looked away. "You don't like her." "I don't trust her," Mrs. Collins replied gently. "But I love you, and I want you to be happy." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. Mrs. Collins' words played over and over in his head. He looked at old messages from Elena. He remembered moments when she snapped at waiters, when she complained about his mother's house, when she pushed him to buy expensive things. And suddenly, those small things didn't feel so small anymore. The seed of doubt had been planted. The next day, Ryan told Elena he needed space for a few days. "Just to think," he said. Elena was confused. "Think about what?" He didn't answer clearly. He just said, "I need to be alone for a bit." She was angry. She felt control slipping from her hands. But she smiled and nodded sweetly, pretending to understand. As soon as she left, she called her friend and said, "He's getting cold. His mother is behind this. I can feel it." The mask was starting to crack. Meanwhile, Mrs. Collins and Carla were preparing for the final part of the test, the reveal. It would happen at the engagement party. Guests would be invited. Speeches would be made. And in the middle of it all, a surprise message would play. A message that would show Elena's true self. Mrs. Collins didn't want revenge. She just wanted Ryan to see, to finally understand what she had been trying to protect him from. Back at his apartment, Ryan stood at the window, holding a photo of him and Elena. He looked at her smile. Was it real? He thought back to all the times he paid for her shopping sprees, the times she ignored his mother's advice, the way she always talked about his money like it was hers. He was starting to wonder if love had blinded him. His heart was still hopeful, but his mind was no longer silent. The distance between them had begun, and soon the truth would follow. Ryan was excited. He had found the perfect ring. He was going to propose to Elena in 2 weeks. But something inside Mrs. Collins didn't feel right. She sat alone in her room that evening, staring at the video recordings Carla had sent her. In one clip, Elena laughed with her friend, talking about Ryan's money. "He's sweet and rich. What more could I want?" Elena had said. Another clip showed her shopping with Carla in disguise. Elena didn't know she was being recorded. She complained about Ryan's simple lifestyle, saying she'd fix it all once the wedding happens. Mrs. Collins felt her stomach twist. Her worst fears were becoming real. But she didn't show it yet. Instead, she decided to observe Elena more closely. The next morning, Elena came over for breakfast. She smiled sweetly at Mrs. Collins, hugged Ryan, and acted like the perfect girlfriend. But Mrs. Collins noticed how Alina frowned when she saw the old sofa, how her smile faded when Ryan offered her a simple breakfast, how she rolled her eyes when she thought no one was looking. "Do you like the pancakes, Alina?" Mrs. Collins asked. Alina forced a smile. "Oh yes, they're charming. Very home-style." Ryan laughed. "That's what Mom's cooking is all about." But Mrs. Collins could tell that wasn't a compliment. It was an insult wrapped in a fake smile. Later that week, Ryan started noticing small things too. They were at a restaurant when the waitress got his order wrong. Alina's mood turned dark instantly. "Are you blind?" She snapped at the girl. He asked for sparkling water, not still. Ryan looked at her, surprised. "Alina, it's okay. It's just water." She didn't apologize. When they got home, Ryan said gently, "You were a bit rude back there." Alina waved it off. "People need to do their jobs right. I was just being honest." But her words didn't sit well with Ryan. At the same time, Mrs. Collins was planning something big. She didn't want to destroy Ryan's heart, but she couldn't let him walk into a marriage built on lies. So she called Carla. "It's time," she said. "We do it at the engagement party." Carla agreed. Let the whole truth come out in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Alina could sense something was off. Ryan had become quieter. He didn't call her as much. He didn't smile the same way. One night, as they sat on the couch, Alina said, "You've been distant. Is everything okay?" Ryan hesitated. Then he smiled weakly. "Just a lot on my mind." She leaned on his shoulder. "You're not having second thoughts, are you?" He didn't answer right away. That silence spoke louder than words. Mrs. Collins watched her son struggle silently. One afternoon, she sat beside him in the garden. "Ryan," she said gently, "do you know why your father and I stayed married for 30 years? Ryan shook his head. "Because we respected each other, because we were honest, and because we never wore masks in front of each other." Ryan looked down. "You think Alina is wearing a mask?" Mrs. Collins didn't reply. She simply stood up, kissed his forehead, and said, "You'll know soon enough." That night, Ryan stared at the engagement ring on his table. It sparkled in the light, just like Alina's smile. But now, he wasn't sure what was real anymore. He remembered her tone with the waitress, her interest in expensive things, her cold reaction when he talked about helping his mom. His heart still wanted to believe in love, but his mind was waking up. He needed the truth, no matter how painful it was. Far away, Alina sat with her friend at a spa. She sipped on her drink and said, "His mom is still in the way. But once we're married, she won't be a problem. I'll make sure Ryan listens to me." She had no idea someone was watching from the corner, Carla, and she had recorded every word. The big day was coming. Ryan had picked the perfect place, a beautiful garden venue with fairy lights, music, and close friends. He wanted to propose to Alina in front of everyone. But now, he wasn't sure if he'd do it. Mrs. Collins, however, had a plan, and she had no doubt about what needed to be done. 2 days before the engagement party, she met Carla in a quiet cafe. Carla placed her phone on the table. "I got everything," she whispered. She played the recording again, Alina's voice clear and cold. "His mom is still in the way. But once we're married, she won't be a problem. I'll make sure Ryan listens to me." Mrs. Collins's heart sank, but she stayed calm. "We'll show it at the party, but we have to be smart. No drama, just truth." Carla nodded. "He deserves to know." Back at Ryan's apartment, Alina was busy getting her nails done and choosing the perfect dress. "I want to wear something that says wife material," she joked to her friend over the phone. She had no idea her future mother-in-law was planning something behind the scenes. When Ryan came home that night, Alina hugged him tightly. "Only 2 days left," she whispered. Ryan smiled weakly. "Yeah, just 2 days." But something inside him still felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Mrs. Collins prepared everything with care. She didn't want to hurt her son. She just wanted to protect him. She hired a technician to set up a video projector at the venue. She told the decorator to leave a space for a family message. "No one will expect it," she said. "That's the point." The night before the party, Ryan sat alone in his room. He looked at his parents' photo. His father had passed away 5 years ago, but his voice still echoed in Ryan's heart. Choose someone who brings peace to your life, not pressure. He didn't sleep well that night. Finally, the day of the engagement party arrived. The garden was glowing with lights. Music played softly. Guests arrived in beautiful clothes, holding gifts and smiling. Ryan wore a sharp suit. Alina looked stunning in a red dress. Everything seemed perfect on the outside. Mrs. Collins welcomed the guests with warm smiles. But inside, she felt nervous. It was almost time. After dinner, Ryan stepped up with the mic. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he said, his voice shaky but warm. "I wanted to share this moment with the people I love, because soon I'm going to ask a very important question." People clapped. Alina beamed with pride. But before he could continue, Mrs. Collins stood up. "Before the big moment," she said, "I'd like to share something very special, something from the heart." Ryan looked confused. Alina's smile froze. Mrs. Collins nodded to the technician. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up, and the video began. First came a clip of Alina shopping with Carla. "He's sweet and rich. What more could I want?" Then came the spa recording. "His mom is still in the way, but once we're married, she won't be a problem. I'll make sure Ryan listens to me." Gasps filled the garden. Alina's face turned pale. She stood frozen, unable to speak. Ryan's eyes widened. He looked at Alina, then at his mother. "Alina, is this true?" he asked, his voice cold. Alina stuttered. I didn't mean it like that. I was just joking." "Really?" Carla stepped forward. "Because you said the same thing twice." Ryan's hands shook. He put the mic down and walked away slowly. Alina tried to follow him, but Mrs. Collins stepped in front of her. "Let him breathe," she said calmly. "You've said enough." Outside the garden, Ryan sat alone on a bench. His heart felt like it was breaking. Not because of the lies, but because he had truly loved her. Mrs. Collins came and sat beside him. "I didn't do this to hurt you," she said softly. "I know," Ryan replied. "You did it to save me." Tears filled his eyes. "I was going to marry her, Mom. And now," she said, "you won't marry someone who doesn't respect you." The engagement party was over, but the damage it left behind still hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Guests whispered as they left the garden. Some looked at Alina with pity. Others stared in silence, shaking their heads. The once perfect bride-to-be now stood alone in a red dress that no longer shined. Alina's eyes searched for Ryan, but he had disappeared into the night. Mrs. Collins quietly spoke to the caterers and asked them to pack up. She remained calm and collected, even though inside, her heart was heavy. For her son, a silent ride home. Ryan drove alone that night. No music, no thoughts, just silence. The road lights passed by like memories. The way Alina laughed, the way she looked at him when no one else was watching, the way she'd said yes when he talked about the future. Was any of it real? He pulled over near a lake, his favorite thinking spot, and sat in the car for hours. His phone buzzed again and again. Alina, 10 missed calls. Alina, please, let me explain. Alina, I was just angry that day. I didn't mean it. Alina, I love you. Please talk to me. But Ryan didn't reply. Alina breaks down. Alina sat on her bedroom floor, makeup smeared from tears. Her phone shook in her hands. "What have I done?" she cried. It was just a stupid conversation. Why did Carla do this? Her friend, Tanya, tried to calm her down. "Alina, It wasn't just one conversation. It was how you acted. You've been pretending too much. Elena snapped. You think I didn't love him? I think, Tanya said softly, you love the idea of him, not the man. Elena threw a pillow across the room. No, I'm not giving up. I'll fix this. But deep inside, even she knew something was broken beyond repair. Ryan and his mother talk. The next morning, Ryan sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of black coffee. Mrs. Collins walked in quietly. Did you sleep? She asked. He shook his head. I thought I knew her, Mom. Mrs. Collins sat across from him. Love can blind us, son. That's why I had to be sure. Ryan looked at her, tired but not angry. Thank you, he said. You saved me from a life built on lies. Mrs. Collins nodded, but her heart still ached. I just want you to be with someone who truly sees you for who you are, not what you have. Elena's last attempt. Elena wasn't done yet. She showed up at Ryan's office with a box of his favorite things, a photo of them, cookies she once baked for him, and the bracelet he gave her. The receptionist tried to stop her. Miss, I'm sorry, Mr. Ryan isn't. I need to see him, Elena said, forcing a smile. Ryan stepped out of his office. The moment he saw her, everything slowed down. Elena walked up to him. Please, talk to me. Just 5 minutes. Ryan nodded and led her into a private room. The final conversation. Elena placed the box on the table. This is everything that ever mattered to me. Ryan looked at her quietly. Elena, he said, I loved you. I really did. I love you too, she whispered. No, you loved the life I could give you. You loved the future we planned, but not the man standing in front of you. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I was scared of losing it all. And that fear made you lie, made you play a part. That's not love, Elena. That's control. She reached out to touch his hand, but he pulled away. I hope you find peace, Ryan said gently. But this isn't for us anymore. Elena broke down in front of him, but Ryan didn't stay. Ryan moves forward. That night, Ryan deleted the photos on his phone, cleaned up the house, and sat with his mom for dinner. It wasn't the happy ending he imagined, but it was the truth. Sometimes heartbreak is better than living a lie. Mrs. Collins smiled at him. You'll love again, and next time, it'll be real. Ryan nodded. I believe that now. Days turned into weeks. The city kept moving. People kept living. But inside Ryan's heart, something had changed. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't angry. But he was different. After everything with Elena, Ryan had learned a painful but powerful lesson. Not every beautiful face hides a kind heart. He started spending more time with his mother. They cooked together. They laughed. They talked about life. Not business, not wealth, just life. One night, while watching old home videos, Mrs. Collins looked at her son and said, You know, I missed you. Before the suits, before the titles. I missed the boy who used to dream. Ryan smiled gently. He's still here, Mom. Just healing. The unexpected letter. One rainy afternoon, Ryan received a letter. Not an email, not a text, but a real letter in a pale pink envelope. It was from Elena. Inside, her handwriting trembled with emotion. Asterisk, Dear Ryan, I don't expect forgiveness. I only want you to know that I started therapy. I'm trying to understand why I was the way I was. You were good to me. I wasn't ready for that kind of goodness. Thank your mother for opening my eyes, even if it hurt. Elena. Asterisk. Ryan read the letter in silence. Then, without a word, he folded it and placed it in a drawer. The past had been closed. Now it was time to start fresh. A chance encounter. It was a Saturday morning. Ryan was in a bookstore, something he hadn't done in years. No meetings, no phone calls, just peace. While browsing the self-help section, a soft voice behind him said, That's a good one. But chapter 5 is a little slow. He turned and saw a woman. Simple dress, curly hair, no makeup, just kindness in her eyes. She laughed gently. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." Ryan smiled. "No, I appreciate honest reviews." They stood there awkwardly for a moment. "I'm Mia," she said. "Ryan," he replied, offering his hand. They shook hands like strangers, who might not stay strangers for long. Something real begins. Mia wasn't like anyone Ryan had met. She didn't care about money. She didn't ask about his business or his last vacation. She asked about his childhood, his favorite books, his dreams. And she listened, not just to respond, but to understand. They started meeting for coffee, then walks in the park, then dinners that lasted for hours. Mia brought a calm energy into Ryan's world. No drama, no secrets, just honesty. One night, under the stars, Maya looked at him and asked, "You're not used to quiet love, are you?" Ryan paused. "No, I've only known love that shouted. Yours, whispers. And I think that's what I've always needed." Mrs. Collins notices the change. One evening, Ryan invited Mia to dinner with his mother. Mrs. Collins watched them closely, not to judge, but to see. She noticed the way Maya spoke gently, the way she looked at Ryan with respect, not possession, the way Ryan smiled differently now, more real. After dinner, Mrs. Collins pulled Ryan aside. "She's good for you," she whispered. Ryan smiled. "I know. And this time," his mother added, "you didn't need me to test her." "No," Ryan said proudly, "because I'd learned how to see clearly." Elena moves on too. Far away in another city, Elena was making her own changes. She had taken a job, her first real one without shortcuts. She walked to work. She made coffee for others. She apologized more. In her small apartment, there were no diamonds or designer bags, just peace. One evening, she looked at a photo of her and Ryan. She smiled softly, not with regret, but with gratitude. He had been her lesson. And sometimes, lessons are more valuable than happy endings. Back to the beginning. Ryan and Mia sat on a bench one day near the same lake he used to visit alone. Only this time, he wasn't alone. She leaned on his shoulder and whispered, "Do you think things happen for a reason?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, even heartbreak, even betrayal. They lead us to truth." She smiled. "Then I'm glad we met." So was he. Because after all the pain, after all the lies, Ryan had finally found something real, something true, something worth starting over for. Ryan finally felt peace. For the first time in years, his heart was quiet. He had Mia, he had his mother, and he had himself. But life always has one more test. The job offer. One sunny morning, Ryan received a call from a global company based in London. They offered him the biggest role of his life, chief executive of a billion-dollar expansion. The catch: he'd have to move. In 2 weeks. It was everything he'd ever worked for. Everything his old self would have grabbed without thinking. But now he had Mia. He sat with her that night, watching the stars. "I got an offer," he said slowly. "London. Huge position. But I'd have to leave." Mia smiled softly. "That's amazing. You've earned it." Ryan paused. "But it would change everything." She looked into his eyes. "I don't want to stop you, Ryan. But I also can't follow you into a world I don't belong to." His chest tightened. Mia didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just told the truth. "If you go proudly. But know that I have my own dreams here." Mrs. Collins' warning. Ryan sat with his mother the next day, staring out the window. "She didn't try to keep me, Mom," he whispered. Mrs. Collins nodded. "Because she's not trying to own you. She's trying to love you the right way." "But what if I lose her?" Mrs. Collins held his hand gently. "Then she was never yours to keep." "But Ryan, Sometimes love means staying, not chasing more. He didn't speak for a while. The silence was heavy. Ryan's decision. The deadline came quickly. The company sent the contract, the plane tickets, the apartment brochure. Everything was ready. But Ryan wasn't. He stood outside the airport, watching planes land and take off. He imagined boardrooms, big speeches, luxury hotels. And then he imagined Mia's smile, her honesty, her calm. His chest ached with conflict. He pulled out his phone and called the company. "Thank you," he said firmly, "but I'm turning it down. A bigger life." Later that evening, Ryan drove to Mia's place. She opened the door, surprised. "I thought you'd be gone by now." He smiled gently. "I'm not leaving." Her eyes widened. "You turned it down." "Yes," he said simply, "because I already have everything I was searching for. Peace, love, purpose." Mia didn't say anything. She just hugged him, a long, silent hug filled with meaning. The surprise announcement. A few weeks later, Ryan held a press conference at his company. People expected big news. Investors, media, and staff watched with curiosity. But Ryan smiled and said something they never expected. "I'm stepping away from my role. Not because I failed, but because I finally succeeded in becoming the man I wanted to be." Gasps echoed. Cameras flashed. He continued, "I'll be starting a nonprofit with my mother and Mia. We'll support young entrepreneurs from humble backgrounds. I've had my time. Now it's time to give back." The crowd stood and clapped. Mrs. Collins wiped her eyes proudly. Mia smiled, tears shining in her eyes. Alina watches from afar. In a small cafe far away, Alina watched the press conference on her phone. She smiled softly. "He really did change," she whispered to herself. A woman at a nearby table asked, "Do you know him?" Alina paused, then said quietly, "Once, and I'm glad I did." Back to the bench. Ryan and Mia sat on the same bench where they first talked months ago. The lake shimmered in the evening light. She held his hand and whispered, "No regrets." He shook his head. "Not one. Because the biggest win of my life was learning to walk away from what wasn't meant for me." Mia leaned on his shoulder. They sat in silence. And this time, there were no more tests. Just peace. Just love. Just the quiet, beautiful beginning of forever. Days after the press conference, life had slowed down. Ryan was finally living without pressure, fame, or the fake lifestyle that once ruled him. But something still lingered in his heart. How exactly did his mother plan the test? And who helped her? He never got the full truth. Until now. A mysterious letter. One morning, Ryan found a handwritten envelope on his doorstep. No name. Just, "To Ryan. Before you move forward, know everything." He opened it slowly. Inside, there was a letter in his mom's handwriting. And 2 photos. One photo showed Mia in the flower shop the first day she met Ryan. The second showed Mrs. Collins, standing across the street, watching. The letter began, "My son, you deserve the truth. This is the story you never knew. The hidden test." Mrs. Collins explained everything. After meeting Alina, she saw how blind love could make her son. She didn't want to ruin his heart again, but she also didn't want to interfere directly. So, she created a plan. Test the next woman, but do it without manipulation. Mia had come into the flower shop by chance, or maybe fate. Mrs. Collins noticed her kindness, her humility, and her strength. So she decided to test Mia without her knowing. She sent her friend Mr. Peterson, the grumpy customer, in part 3, to challenge Mia's patience. Mia had passed beautifully. Mia's secret struggles. The letter revealed something Ryan didn't know. Mia had almost quit the flower shop. Not because of Ryan, but because of the judgment she faced from customers. She once went home in tears, the letter said. But she showed up the next morning, smiling again. Mrs. Collins wrote, That's when I knew. She wasn't perfect, but she was strong, kind, and real. That's the woman I wanted for my son. Alina's change of heart. The second half of the letter stunned Ryan even more. Mrs. Collins had secretly reached out to Alina. She didn't ask her to interfere. She just told her one thing. If you truly loved him once, let him go the right way. Alina had agreed. The call Mia received from Alina in part 6. That wasn't random. It was Alina's final gift, to warn her, not hurt her. And the photos, Alina had sent them too. She had grown, quietly, far away. Ryan's emotional moment. As Ryan read the last line, tears ran down his face. I didn't want to choose for you, son. I just wanted to give you a real chance. To be loved by someone who doesn't care about what you own, but who you are. He folded the letter gently, placed it back in the envelope, and sat in silence. So many people had helped him find his path, in their own quiet way. The gift for Mia. That evening, Ryan visited Mia. She was in the backyard, watering plants. He walked up, smiling. I have something for you. She looked up. What is it? He handed her a small box. Inside was a key and a tiny flower charm. The key to what? She asked. Ryan said softly, our own shop, your dream flower cafe. I already rented the space. It's in both our names. Mia covered her mouth, shocked. Are you serious? He nodded. You've been tested enough, Mia. Now, it's time for you to bloom. A new beginning. 6 months later, the grand opening of Bloom and Brew became the most talked about event in town. Customers came not just for flowers and coffee, but for the story behind it. Ryan and Mia stood hand in hand. Mrs. Collins cut the ribbon. Even Alina quietly sent a bouquet with a card that read, Thank you for loving him right. Final scene. The bench again. The story ends where it began, on that same old bench. Ryan and Mia sit peacefully. Maya looks at him and asks, Do you think life will test us again? Ryan smiles. Maybe. But this time, we're ready. The camera slowly pans out. The sun sets, and the screen fades to black with the words. Sometimes the hardest tests lead to the most beautiful answers.